The villagers avoided her, still believing her presence brought misfortune. Children would throw stones at her house and run away chanting, "The witch who lost her children! The witch who lost her children!" Adaeze would cover her ears and sob, knowing she had brought this fate upon herself. Umuoma was a place of deep green forest, clear rivers and fields that stretched as far as eye could see. The village was alive with the sounds of birds singing, children laughing and women pounding yam in wooden mortars. The people of Umuoma were simple and hardworking, united like a family, always looking out for each other. Among them lived Adaeze and her husband Obinna. They were a respected couple in the village, known for their kindness and generosity, but there was a sadness in their home, a yearning for a child they could call their own. For years, Adaeze and Obinna had prayed, visited priests and traveled to distant towns looking for help. Yet, the cradle in their home remained empty, and Adaeze's eyes were filled with tears. One evening, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Obinna found Adaeze sitting under the large mango tree in their compound, her face buried in her hands. He sat beside her, gently pulling her close. "Adaeze, my love, don't cry. I know how much you want a child. I do too, but maybe it's time we consider adopting." Adaeze lifted her head, her eyes red and swollen. She thought about his words, and slowly a small smile appeared on her lips. "Adopt, you say?" she asked, curious. But will the child ever truly be ours? Obinna nodded thoughtfully. "A child needs love, Adaeze, and we have so much love to give. Blood does not matter. Our hearts will make them ours," Obinna assured her. After many days of discussion and prayer, they decided to adopt. They visited a nearby village where they heard of a little boy, Chijioke, whose parents had died in a tragic accident. Chijioke was just 3 years old, with large, curious eyes and a timid smile. When Adaeze saw him, her heart melted. She knelt down and held out her hand. "Mom, would you like to come home with me?" she asked with a gentle tone. Chijioke looked at her, unsure at first, but then he reached out and touched her hand. That simple touch was enough to seal his fate. He came to live with Adaeze and Obinna, and from that day on, their home was filled with laughter, play, and joy. Chijioke brought light into their lives. He was a cheerful boy, always eager to help around the house, fetching water, sweeping the compound, and running errands. He had a special way of making everyone smile, and Adaeze and Obinna loved him as their own. The villagers of Umuoma were touched by the couple's generosity. They often praised them for their kindness. Mama Nkechi, an elderly woman who lived nearby, would say, "God will surely bless Adaeze and Obinna for their goodness. That boy is so lucky to have them." Chijioke grew up happy, always wearing a bright smile. He attended the village school where he made many friends and was known for his gentle nature and helpfulness. Whenever Adaeze called his name, he would run to her, his small feet kicking up dust as he dashed across the yard. Chijioke's energy and enthusiasm endeared him to everyone in the village. He would help the old women like Mama Nkechi carry their baskets from the market and assisting Papa Uche in gathering firewood. The villagers often commented on his good nature. "Chijioke, you are such a blessing. Adaeze and Obinna have done so well to bring you into their home," said Mama Nkechi after Chijioke had helped her to carry her basket. Whenever Chijioke received praises for his helpfulness, he would smile shyly and nod, feeling the warmth of their praises. But as the years passed, Adaeze and Obinna continued to pray for a biological child, and then miraculously, their prayers were answered. One evening, Adaeze felt an unusual sensation in her body. At first, she thought it was fatigue from the day's hard work, but soon the feeling grew stronger. She clutched her stomach, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. Excitedly, she called out to her husband, "Obinna, something is happening. I think I might be pregnant." Obinna's eyes widened with a mix of hope and disbelief. "Pregnant? "Are you sure?" he asked in disbelief. They hurried to consult with the village midwife, Mama Eze, who confirmed the good news. The village was filled with joy, and Adeze's pregnancy became the talk of every gathering. While Adeze and Obinna were overjoyed, Adeze couldn't help but notice Chijioke's quiet demeanor after hearing the good news. Chijioke had heard about the new baby but did not fully understand what it would mean for him. He saw how everyone fused over Adeze, how Obinna seemed happier than usual, and how his mother's attention seemed to shift away from him. One day, he asked Mama Nkechi, his friend and confidant, "Mama Nkechi, will Mama and Papa still love me after the baby comes?" he asked innocently. Mama Nkechi, who is always warm and understanding, smiled and patted his head. "Of course they will, Chijioke. A new baby will bring joy, but it will not take their love for you away." Feeling slightly reassured, Chijioke decided to be even more helpful around the house. He worked hard on the farm with Obinna and took extra chores to show his love and support for his parents. Months passed, and soon the day of Adeze's delivery arrived. The air in the village was filled with tension and excitement. The village midwives and elderly women gathered in Adeze's home, offering prayers and support. Adeze went through a long and difficult labor, but after several hours, the cries of a newborn filled the air. The midwife, Mama Ejike, smiled as she held up the baby for all to see. "It is a boy, a strong, healthy boy," she said with a loud and happy tone. Adeze and Obinna's face lit up with joy. They named him Chibuzo, which means God leads. As the midwife handed the baby to Adeze, she felt a rush of emotion and happiness like she had never felt before. Tears of joy streamed down her face. "My son, my own flesh and blood, you are the answer to my prayers," she said softly while caressing the newborn. Obinna, overjoyed, also gently stroked Chibuzo's tiny hand. "Welcome, my son. You are truly a blessing to us." He also praised the newborn. Chijioke, who had been watching everything unfold from the corner of the room, felt a mix of emotions. He was happy for his mother and father, but he also felt a deep growing fear that he would no longer be loved. As days went by, his fears began to come true. At first, Adeze and Obinna tried to balance their love and attention between Chijioke and the new baby. However, as the weeks passed, Adeze's attention became increasingly focused on Chibuzo. She would spend hours singing lullabies, feeding and playing with him, while Chijioke watched from a distance. One day, as Adeze was feeding Chibuzo, Chijioke approached her cautiously. "Mama, can I hold him? I want to help," he said innocently. But Adeze barely looked at him and waved him away. "No, Chijioke, he is too small. You might hurt him," she said plainly without looking at him. Chijioke's face fell. He just wanted to be a part of the family, to feel included. Every time he tried to help or show his love for Chibuzo, he was pushed away. Adeze's warmth seemed reserved only for Chibuzo. One evening, Obinna noticed Chijioke sitting alone by the fireplace, staring into the fire. He sat down beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Chijioke, why do you look so sad?" he asked with concern. Chijioke hesitated before speaking, his voice small and filled with uncertainty. "Papa, do you still love me? Have I done something wrong?" he asked innocently. Obinna's heart broke at the boy's words. He hugged Chijioke tightly. "Oh, Chijioke, you have done nothing wrong. You are still our son, and we love you very much," Obinna said reassuringly. But despite Obinna's assurance, Chijioke could still feel the difference in how he was treated. Adeze, who once smiled at him and held him close, now seemed distant, her eyes only lighting up for Chibuzo. The once cheerful home now felt cold and unfamiliar to Chijioke. The villagers began to notice the change in Adeze's behavior. Where she was once warm and loving toward Chijioke, she had become indifferent and sometimes even harsh. One day, while fetching water at the village stream, Mama Nkechi approached Adeze. Adaeze, I have noticed that you seem different towards Chijioke lately. He is such a good boy. What has happened? What changed? She asked in a concerned tone. Adaeze shrugged, her face tight with irritation. He is not my blood, Mama Nkechi. Now that I have my own son, things are different, she said without any emotion in her voice. Mama Nkechi frowned, troubled by Adaeze's words. But blood is not everything, Adaeze. Love is what makes a family. Chijioke has always been a good son to you. Adaeze turned away, dismissing Mama Nkechi's concerns. As time went on, she became even more focused on Chibuzo, leaving Chijioke to handle most of the house chores. He fetched water, tended to the goats, swept the compound, and worked tirelessly, trying to prove his worth. One day, as he returned from the stream with a heavy pot of water balanced on his head, he stumbled, spilling some of the water on the ground. Adaeze, who was carrying Chibuzo, saw what had happened and snapped at him. How many times must I tell you to be careful? You waste everything, she said angrily, not minding that the boy might have injured himself in the process. Chijioke felt tears welling up in his eyes, but he bit his lips and continued his work in silence. He could feel the eyes of the villagers watching him, some with pity, but others with curiosity. Despite his hardship, Chijioke remained kind and gentle. He often visited Mama Nkechi, who was like a grandmother to him. She would hug him warmly and offer him small treats like roasted granules or mango slice. Chijioke, my child, remember that you are loved, even if he does not feel like it at home. Chijioke would nod, grateful for her kindness, but his heart ached with the longing for his mother's love and affection. One fateful night, a storm raged over the village. Thunder boomed and the rain fell heavily, flooding the village path. Adaeze was inside, comforting Chibuzo, who was frightened by the storm. Chijioke, however, was outside, trying to gather the goats that had strayed. As he struggled against the wind and rain, he heard a sharp cry from inside the house. He rushed in, thinking Chibuzo might be in danger, but found Adaeze cradling Chibuzo and glaring at him. "Where have you been? You would have been here to help with your brother," she said coldly. Chijioke, drenched and shivering, stammered an apology. "I am sorry, Mama. I was just trying to bring back the..." Before he could finish, Adaeze waved him off, her face filled with disdain. "Just go to your corner, Chijioke. You are always in the way," her voice pealed. That night, Chijioke lay on his mat, tears silently streaming down his face. He felt utterly alone. He knew he could not endure this treatment any longer. He decided that he would leave the village, hoping to find somewhere he could feel loved and accepted. At dawn, while the village was still asleep, he quietly packed a small bundle of clothes and a few belongings. He took one last look at the house he had called home for so long, feeling a deep pain in his heart, then slipped away into the early morning. Chijioke walked for hours, his small feet trotting through the muddy paths. He had no idea where he was going, but he knew he needed to find a place where he could belong. After tirelessly walking all day, he found a spot under a large tree, and with his back against the rough bark, he clutched his small bag tightly, staring up at the starry sky. Each star seemed to remind him of the home he had left behind, a home that no longer wanted him. As the night grew colder, Chijioke coiled up, feeling the ache of hunger and the sting of rejection, a sob escaping his lips. "Why does Mama not love me anymore? What did I do wrong?" he asked in tears, without expecting an answer from anyone in particular. His voice broke and he buried his face in his knees, his small frame trembling in the cold night. The following morning, as he wandered further, he met a kind old farmer named Papo Keke, who took pity on him and offered him food and shelter. "What brings you here, young one? You look lost and weary," the concerned old man asked. Chijioke hesitated, then decided to tell Papo Keke his story. The old man listened intently, his face soft with understanding. "You have been brave, Chijioke. Do not worry. You can stay here with me for as long as you want," he comforted him. "For the first first time in many months, Chijioke felt safe again. Papa Okeke treated him kindly, giving him light chores around the farm and teaching him about the land. Chijioke felt his spirit slowly returning, and a small smile began to grace his face once more. Meanwhile, back at home, Chijioke was nowhere to be found. Instead of being concerned and worried, Adaeze rather felt a sense of relief. Chijioke had left without making a fuss, and she was glad to be free of the burden she had carried for so long. At least now I can focus on my own son Chibuzo, my flesh and blood, she said coldly. Adaeze felt happy that she no longer had to divide her attention between Chibuzo and Chijioke. She believed the departure of the adopted boy was a blessing in disguise, freeing her to love and cherish her son without any distractions. But little did she know, barely 2 weeks after Chijioke's departure, tragedy struck the village, one which shook the village and will change things forever. One sunny afternoon, Adaeze took Chibuzo down to the village stream to wash clothes. While she was busy scrubbing and humming to herself, Chibuzo, full of curiosity and energy, wandered away from her side. He walked closer to the edge of the stream where the water flowed faster. Adaeze looked up just in time to see Chibuzo slipped on the wet rock. Her heart jumped into her throat. "Chibuzo, no!" she screamed out in fear. She dropped the clothes and ran towards him, but it was too late. The current was strong, and Chibuzo, who did not know how to swim, was pulled into the deeper part of the stream. Adaeze jumped in, desperately trying to reach her son, but the water was fast and relentless. She screamed and cried, her voice echoing through the trees, but there was no one around to help. By the time she managed to reach him, Chibuzo's small body was lifeless, floating face down in the water. Adaeze pulled him to the shore, her hands trembling as she cradled him against her chest. "My son, my precious boy, wake up. Please, wake up," she cried loudly, but Chibuzo did not wake up. He had drowned, leaving Adaeze shattered and broken. Her wails filled the air, a sound of grief so deep and raw that it seemed to pierce the heaven. News of Chibuzo's death spread quickly through the village. People whispered that the gods had punished Adaeze for her cruelty to Chijioke. They believed that because she had mistreated an innocent child, the gods had taken her own son as retribution. The villagers began to avoid Adaeze, gossiping behind her back and openly mocking her. "Did you hear? The gods have taken her only son. She deserves it for what she did to that poor boy Chijioke," one of the villagers said. "They say her house is cursed, that no child can live there in peace. Serves her right for being so heartless," another replied. Adaeze, once respected, now found herself isolated and despised. People refused to speak to her, and parents warned their children to stay away from her house, fearing her misfortune might spread to them. No one offered help or comfort in her grief. In her desperation and grief, Adaeze realized the depth of her mistake. She began searching for Chijioke, hoping that finding him would somehow redeem her in the eyes of the gods and the villagers. She searched every corner of the village and traveled to nearby villages, calling out his name, asking if anyone had seen her son, but no one had. Chijioke seemed to have vanished without a trace. Her search proved futile, and as time passed, her hope began to fade too. The weight of her guilt and the loss of both children drove her into deeper misery. She spent her days wandering the village like a ghost, her face gaunt and eyes hollow. "Look at her, searching for the boy she chased away. The gods will never forgive her. She is cursed," said one villager. "She deserves every bit of the pain she feels. It is her own doing. Let her live with it," another villager chipped in. No one offered Adaeze a kind word or a helping hand. She was shunned, left to suffer alone, a living symbol of the consequences of cruelty. As years passed, Adaeze's once vibrant spirit withered into a shadow of her former self. She lived in solitude, her days filled with endless regret and sorrow. She would sit by the stream where Chibuzo had died, staring into the water water, whispering prayers for forgiveness that seemed to go unanswered. Chijioke, wherever you are, I am sorry. I was wrong. Please forgive me, she will often say in silence. But the only response she ever heard was the cold wind rustling through the trees, a reminder of her loneliness and the love she had lost forever. Her house, once filled with laughter and life, became a silent tomb. The villagers avoided her, still believing her presence brought misfortune. Children would throw stones at her house and run away chanting, "The witch who lost her children! The witch who lost her children!" Adaeze would cover her ears and sob, knowing she had brought this fate upon herself. She lived the rest of her days in misery, haunted by the memory of Chijioke's innocent face and Chibuzo's lifeless body, knowing that she had been the architect of her own suffering. The story served as a powerful lesson on the consequences of cruelty and the importance of love and kindness. It reminds us that every child, regardless of their origin, deserves love, and that the gods of fate do not look kindly upon those who mistreat the innocent. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and leave a comment letting us know what you think about the story. Kindly subscribe if you are yet to do so. Up until next time, bye for now. Mwah.